I was walking around the second-hand store today, just killing some time, and I came across a little digital photo frame for $2.29. And I thought, you know what? Let's try this out. Doesn't have a power supply. Maybe we can make it work. Maybe we can't. But let's just see if it will work. I picked up this little picture frame today for the low price of $2.29 at the second-hand place. It actually looks quite nice. With a nice little wood frame on there. I thought, man, this was cool. If it works, I've just scored another neat little gadget. Not that I need another picture frame, but hey, digital picture frames are kind of cool. I've got a big one that I display my photos on in the house. It's like a 20, I think it's a 21 inch. But if not, even if it displays the time, it would be a great digital clock, because most of these will display the time. I didn't get an adapter with it though, so we're gonna have to take this one apart, see what it needs for voltage, and see if I can make this one work. It's a Centrios, and it was sold by Circuit City. 7-inch photo frame, 12 volts DC is what it uses, and it's got a much smaller than normal size power jack on here. So I'm going to have to, and of course it uses I guess it's just an SD card on the side. It might be a multi-connector. Some of these would take memory sticks and SD cards, etc., but that's okay. Okay, let's just pop this unit apart. The fact that it just takes 12 volts means I'll just hardwire an adapter to it. Permanent adapter, because I don't have that size of plug. And I don't know whether this is just going to unscrew the wood frame from this unit itself, or whether the back is going to come off. It's like that screw is stripped. All the screws but one have come out of it. One of the screws is stripped. Fun times. One moment as I get that screw out. Well, I finally got the screw out. As you can see, I had to use a pair of pliers. I actually had to break the plastic tab off here, but I can glue that back on so that I can reattach it using all 4 screws or 5 screws or whatever. So that's not a problem. Glue that piece back on and replace that screw. But as you can see, it rounded off pretty good. There was no way that that was coming out with a screwdriver. And I did have the right size, the number 1 bit. Okay, here's the unit itself. And I'm going to clean the screen because it looks kind of gungy. We'll just use some isopropanol, I guess, on a rag. There, that's not so bad. Probably could use cleaning a little more, but for starters, that's where we'll start with. And I need to get to the power plug, which is down here on this side. It looks like this unit is probably, I don't see any more screws that hold it in place. Using my new magnifier light here, it looks like it's just held in place with rubber grommets that hold it friction fit. So if I just carefully pull those out, the entire screen should lift out on all 4 sides. And then tip forward. I think that's all that's holding it in place. Oh, there's some more. There we go. There's a couple more. Double-sided sticky tape is what's holding this in place. So we just lift the screen down just like that. And now this is the inverter board over here for the fluorescent backlight that's on this little screen. It's a LG Philips LCD panel that's on here. And what interests me, of course, is getting power to the power socket on the side here, because that is that's the goal, is to get it powered up. So I'm just going to remove the flex cable here, unplug the LCD, and it will unplug the power connector for the display. And for that matter, I can take out the small screw over here that's holding the ground in place. I can either do it off the board here or do it off the panel. I think I will do it right off the board. And that way I can separate the panel from the rest of the unit for safekeeping. We'll just put that aside. That's the screw for the ground. And now I can work on getting power to the board. So we'll remove the remaining screws to lift the board up, and I will apply power. It's just 12 volts, so any 12 volt adapter will do the job. Be interesting to see if someone's left their photos, if it's got internal memory, if somebody has left their photos on there. But here's our power adapter. Goes right here. As you can see, it's a non-standard size, and I don't have a plug for it. I don't think I've got a plug for it. So it's more than likely it's going to be tip positive, barrel negative, most likely. That's what most of these were. So we look at our connector back here. This is going to be the positive one, I'm sure. It's going to be the tip. I can't see them using tip negative. That's something that Sony would have done, though. Sony would have made the tip negative. I'm just looking to see which side. Obviously, there's going to be a fuse on here. That's going to be the fuse right there. That's going to be the one going to tip, I'm sure. So let's just measure that and see, because the fuse is typically on the positive. So if I measure from tip to that fuse, I should get continuity. So there's the tip, and there's continuity. And if I measure to the ground here, the shield case will be ground. That'll go to one of the other pins over here, which it does. So positive is here. That tip is positive, and the other one is negative. And I think probably the easiest way to hook this thing up to permanent power would be just to take the wire in through the hole in the side here and just solder it down to the board. So that's what I'm going to do. I've just got a standard ITE power supply, 1.5 amps at 12 volts, which will be more than enough power for this, and then some. The side with the stripe on it is positive, and the side without the stripe is negative. I've already verified that. So we'll just take the two wires through the existing hole in the side of the unit and attach them to the circuit board. Now, to say, I can probably remove this plug. That might be the smart thing to do, to remove the plug, just so that the wires have a place to go on the board. So I'm just letting my iron warm up here a bit. If I bend this back and forth a few times, I can probably break the copper from the pins, or just cut it off, which is another option. Just take my pliers and cut through the connector and remove it. Just like that. And now I can remove the pins directly from the board, or just solder right to them. But I can just bend the pins over, break them off, or cut them. Probably cut them off just as easy with my snips. And then if I heat up this pin, I should be able to push it through and remove it completely, the positive pin. Just like that. Okay, so now we'll connect the positive wire to the positive terminal, the negative wire to the negative terminal, which is these ones over here, as we verified before with the meter. Positive is going to go to this one. Negative is going to go to either of those two, which are the same thing. That way, there won't be anything underneath the board that could cause problems down the road. And then as soon as I plug this thing in, once I get it, of course, back together, it should be, if the unit is functional, it should fire up. Okay, that should hold the wire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a knot in the end of it. I should have done that before putting it this far in. I'll have to tie a relatively big knot to get the whole circuit board through, but we'll tie a knot in the wire here at the end so that it provides a strain relief so that someone can't yard on the cable and pull it right off the board. So if I put a knot about there, that'll prevent the cord from being pulled anything further back than that. I can now reset the board because the excess wire can just coil up inside here. It's not going to hurt anything. Plug the two plugs back in that I unplugged. And reset the board back into the cabinet, just like that. Pull the slack back through the case here so that the knot lines up so that it's not going to strain anything like that. Okay, now I can reconnect the display and then we can try this unit and see if it works. So the first one is the screw that holds the ground in place. Get the ground wire in first. Plug in the lamp wires, and then finally reconnect the display panel, ribbon cable, and then we can plug it in and see if it works. Fingers crossed that it turns on and displays a picture. And okay, now I can put the panel back in place. The panel just sits into its little holders there and drops into place just like that. Let's power this unit up and see whether it does anything. Did I get a deal for $2.30 or did I get ripped off? Well, it's got power. It says no card. It's lit up. And mode, what does it do here? Not allowed at the moment. Normal, no card. And crop, normal, crop. Normal. Does this thing only display? This may only display photos. It may not have any other options to it. Not very bright, but again, it's pretty bright in this room here. The shop is very, very bright. Let me go grab a little SD card. I'll put a few photos on an SD card and see how they look. Oh. So I just put a card in and it said waiting and it said remove card. Waiting. What does that mean? Just push the card in a few times and see whether it will read. It's possible that the pins are a bit dirty from its sitting. While we're waiting for this thing to see if it does anything, I'd like to send out a thanks to all those who have taken the time to make a donation to my channel. Every dollar certainly helps cover the operational costs because, I mean, yes, certainly I make some money from YouTube, but it's never enough for the amount of time I spend working on this. Every donation, either through Patreon or directly through PayPal, is certainly appreciated, even if I don't individually acknowledge every person that sends me something, because sometimes their email doesn't come through and I have no way of contacting them. But this is just a thank you for everybody that has over the past and in the future. And we're still waiting for this device to display something. I wonder if the resolution of the pictures I put on here are too high. It might be over the maximum resolution that this can accept, because some of the older frames only accepted resolution up to a certain file size, and then beyond that they wouldn't display. This might be one of those situations. So I'll just try grabbing some pictures from a different camera that has a little lower resolution, or down res some of these, and see if they will display. It's waiting to do something, but what it's waiting to do, I don't know. So let's just try some different photos. You know, I got to thinking, maybe this thing doesn't support memory cards larger than 2 gigabytes, because everything I've got is like a SDHC. I don't think I've got any SD cards kicking around. I do have a couple memory sticks though. A 16 megabyte memory stick. Yeah, 16 megs. I have a 32 meg SD card around somewhere too. I gotta find it, but we'll try that if I can find it. But let's see. And I got a 1 gig micro memory stick. I don't know if this one will fit in here or not. Let's just try this one first of all. Does this one fit? Okay, that one goes in. Waiting. Play. Ah! It plays pictures. I just put these pictures on. I resized them down to a small file just so that I could fit a few pictures on, because this is only a 16 meg memory card. There's some pictures of my cats. It works. But it only works with a small memory card. My little amplifier. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. For $2.29, I guess I did okay. Now, there should be some other pictures on here. These are bigger pictures that I took with I think it was a 2 megapixel camera, but these are larger pictures that were not resized. These were actually what was already on this memory stick. I took some pictures with a camera that took memory sticks. So that works. We'll try the other memory card momentarily and see if it works. But at least I know that this thing works now. I can put this frame back together. Yeah, that works. So let's unplug this memory stick and let's plug this one in and see whether it reads the little small memory stick from my other camera. Does it read this one? And it indeed does read this other, the smaller memory stick. There's only one small problem with the smaller memory stick. I will show you what that problem is. How the hell do I get it out? I'm going to have to use a pair of tweezers to try to pull this one out, because this one here is shoved all the way in. So I guess that means I have to try to find an SD card that is less than than 2 gigs in size. I actually have a micro SD card that is 2 gigs in size. It's in my little media player that plays my music for when I'm testing stuff. That works, and that would work if I put that into a micro SD adapter to SD. But let me see if I can find, I'm going to put this thing first of all back together because there's no point in keeping it apart. Now we know that it does work, so let's first of all clean the screen one more time before I put it together. I'll just probably wipe it off, get my fingerprints off of it here. We'll set the screen back into its case, and I'll set some screws into it so that it will look presentable, and then I will go and try to find a memory card that will put into this thing and that I can actually use it. Now, good thing I bought this, because if anybody else had bought this thing, they would have taken it home, put in their big SD card, and it wouldn't have read it. That's if they had found a power supply to make it work, but they would have stuck in their giant SD card and it wouldn't have read it, and they would have thrown the thing in the garbage and thought, okay, oh well, money wasted, toss it out. So, okay, I've located maybe not the smallest SD card ever, but certainly one of the lower capacity, 32 megabytes. We'll try, I put some pictures on this one. Will it read? And it will. It's having to, it might be having trouble. I did not resize these photos. These are too large for it to display, it looks like. Interesting. Oh, there they are. No, it wasn't. It just took a while. It loaded, it had to resize the picture, is what it had to do, but there it is. So it'll play full-size photos, although with a frame this size, certainly you would want to resize, just because there's no advantage in having full-size photos on something like this, because the unit itself is just going to down-res it to the resolution of the display anyway, only being a 7-inch display. It's not bad. The pictures actually looks quite nice. The wood frame, I think, adds a lot to this frame, because it's a real wood frame. Anyway, that's my little $2.29 photo frame find. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you find these things, just keep in mind, if you find these old devices like this, sometimes they just will not run unless you find an old memory card. And that's why when you go on places like Amazon and you look for 2 and 1 and maybe even 4 gig SD cards, you're going to pay a premium for it. Because the sellers know that the reason that you're looking for a small card, like a 1 or a 2 gig card, is because you've got something like this, and it would be less than 2 gigs, because 4 gigs is an SDHC. So 1 or 2 gig will work. I know a 1 gig will work because I put this 1 gig memory stick in. This unit will read Sony memory sticks and SD cards. So there you have it. I got to thinking, what if I reformat this 16 gig card down to a 2 gig card? Then I should be able to set it for FAT16 instead of FAT32. So I'm going to try this using Ease. Where is it here? Ease Partition. Ease US Partition Master, or Partition Program. Put it in my laptop. Ease US Partition Master. And I'm going to change the file size, or the partition size, from 16 gigs down to 2 gigs. Okay, so here's my partition. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say resize, and I'm going to take this from 14 gigs and we'll take this down to 2 gigs. So where are we here? 1.89. That sounds about right. 1.89, and I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to click on here. It says execute one operation, and it says it's going to take it from 14.89 down to 1.89 gigabytes. Apply. Just formatted and changed it down to a 2 gig memory card. Finish. Sure enough, there it is. It's probably still in FAT32, so we'll just go down and click format, and it is in FAT32, so we're going to change this to FAT, default, FAT, and this will now wipe this and change this to a default FAT16. Now I'm going to just copy some photos and stuff over here and see whether I can load them up on that photo frame. I'm just going to do them in the full size. I'm not going to resize anything. Let me drag a few photos over to this memory card, and then we'll go back out and try this 2 gig, 16 gig formatted down to 2 gig in the photo frame and see if it works. So here we are again. This time I've got the 16 gig that has now been formatted down to 2 gigs. Will it read or won't it? That's the big question. Maybe it only supports one gig. Doesn't seem to want to read this formatted down card, does it? I would say that it still won't read it even if it's a 2 gig card. So I'll put this 32 megabyte card back in just so that you can see that it does read that one. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reformat this card down to 1 gig, and we'll see whether it will read the files. Again, it's very slow at reading these because these are full-size files off a 20 megapixel camera. So it's initially very slow, but it did load the photo. So let me go do this as a 1 gig and see whether I can make the 16 gig function as a 1 gig card, doing the same thing I did before, just using my format software to change the partition size. Okay, so I've formatted it down to 1 gigabyte this time. We'll plug the memory card back in. Will it play this time? Or am I just going to have to find a smaller card, a physical smaller size card? Or just reformat some pictures and put them on this 32 meg card? Because scaling down photos to fit on this doesn't take that long to do, and then you can put a whole whack of photos on a small card like this. And I do have a couple of small cards kicking around here still. Doesn't look like it's even going to work with the large card formatted down or repartitioned as a 1 gig card. Unfortunately, it don't work with large cards. A 1 gig or smaller card will play just fine, but it needs to be a physical 1 gig. Well, probably up to a 2 gig would work. On the actual SD card would work, but certainly you can't trick it. The HD or SDHC cards, even when they are formatted down to a small size, still can't be read by this. So keep that in mind if you're looking at buying any old vintage, even when they look real nice like this one. When you buy an old vintage photo frame, you're going to need to find old memory cards to use them. Thanks for watching.